It's a really fun concept. I like what you guys do here. Chris Allen is a great guy too. Good friend of mine over at Football Guys.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Caught us mid conversation. James Koh, Dave Kluge. We welcome you into Best Ball Live. Kluge, say hi to the people out there.
Hey, how you guys doing? I am Dave Kluge. You can find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge. Find all of my written work over at Football Guys. Absolutely thrilled to be here, man. Appreciate the invite. If anybody's been following me on Twitter, they know that I am just a best ball junkie. So this should be fun, getting to show my strategies to everyone.
Hey, listen, we got a great show in front of us here today. We're going to be obviously doing a Best Ball Mania 2 draft. We're waiting for the spots to fill up. It's almost full, so we're just going to kind of sort of, I don't know, shoot the breeze here a little bit till the league fills up. But I will say this. If you've watched the show, a lot of times, we've had two rosters going at the same time, right? Like, so maybe Kluge would be drafting a team and then I would be drafting a team. For Best Ball Mania 2, we're going to co-draft a team. And I told Dave, man, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm just along for the ride. I'm going to put the clicks in. You're going to make the picks. We'll talk it out. And I'm kind of sort of excited to see how this roster turns out because let's be real here. Dave, I've done a lot of these things and you tend to draft the same guys, especially late. You know what I'm saying? So I am actually excited to kind of see what your roster build is going to look like. We were talking a little bit off camera about Devontae Smith, and I know you love him. I've been a little bit torn, but tell the folks out there, again, you kind of sort of love this rookie wide receiver there in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and it's not that I really fell in love with him pre-draft. I actually had him, Jamar Chase above him, and I think that Jamar Chase, hitting with Joe Burrow is great for him. They've got that connection, but I just don't see anybody that really is a threat to take over as the wide receiver one. Devonta Smith is in a position where he could very easily see 125, 130, 135 targets as a rookie, and I don't know if you could say that about a single other guy coming in this year.
It's interesting. I would definitely say that about Jamar Chase, but that's probably it. I think you're right. He could potentially walk into a huge volume share. Hey, listen, we are drafting in the 11th spot here, Dave. What are your thoughts? And actually, before we get there, I just wanted to, kind of put a button on the conversation we are having about Devontae Smith. But golly, man, like when you watch him play, you're like, okay, he can play a little bit, but for me, and I'm such a junkie over like 40 times and all that, and like I know he didn't have a pro day and couldn't run at the combine, but the fact that he kind of sort of declined to run the 40 at his pro day, and his estimated his estimated 40 speed is somewhere in like the low 4.5s, high 4.4s. Mm-hmm. Boy, I went back and went through the database and everything, and like it's just not common. As a matter of fact, we've never seen a player of his small stature run that slow and also be productive. So if he's going to do it, he will literally be the first player to ever do it with that athletic profile, and that kind of sort of scares me off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that the analytics community really has working against him. His BMI, his time, his breakout age. I realize that, but there's some guys that just have an understanding of the game, and he is just a polished technician when it comes to route running. And it's weird. Everybody has this estimated time where he, like you said, was running a 4.5 or something like that. But they talked about it in camp that he just blew the top off the defense today and connected on a 45-yard pass. So, he's got these wheels that are kind of deceiving. And I don't know if it's just that it takes him a while to get up to that full speed, but he just has a knack for getting open, and he plays a lot bigger than he actually is. So I get it. The analytics profile isn't really there for him, but there's just something about that guy when you watch him on tape that you can't help but get excited about.
All right, so our pick is coming up here, man. We're 2 picks away. What are you thinking here, Kluge?
Oh, man, I know Saquon right now. That would be my number one target if he drops to 11, and I know a lot of people are getting worried with the injury, but the way I look at it, even if he just doesn't suit up for the first 4 weeks, like he could literally take 4 weeks off, start playing week 5, and he can still end up paying off at a low-end first-round draft capital. So I love taking Saquon Barkley there when I got the opportunity. And then Austin Eckler would be my other guy. In a PPR league, I have Austin Eckler as my RB6. I'm that confident that he is just going to show up this year. So, yeah, with Austin Eckler dropping, that's the guy that I want to take right here.
Okay, well, Saquon Barkley went right off the board right there at 110. Austin Eckler, I think, again, as you mentioned, the lead running back, and really behind him, there's not a lot of competition.
I'm not worried about Joshua Kelly or Justin Jackson.
No, none of those guys, man. And he's going to get a lot of pass work in what should be a very explosive Chargers offense. So I know we're very excited about that. All right, so we're at the 11th spot. So obviously a quick turnaround here. Who else are you thinking?
And Aaron Jones. Oh, Aaron Jones just went off the
Oh,
board. That was the
and you love
exact
Aaron
guy that
Jones.
I wanted. I do love Aaron Jones, but in this situation, I'll pivot and take DeAndre Hopkins here. I don't know if the people drafting in this room are also watching the show. Let's hope not. But that Kyler Murray DeAndre Hopkins stack is one of my absolute favorites. So we'll reach on Kyler in a little bit to try to make that one happen. But DeAndre Hopkins last year, before Kyler Murray had that injured shoulder, DeAndre Hopkins was the wide receiver one. Kyler Murray
Right.
was the quarterback one. And there's no reason that they can't do that over a 17 game stretch of the season. So DeAndre Hopkins is a guy that, if people have him ranked as the wide receiver one ahead of Tyreek Hill, ahead of Devontae Adams, I'm not even judging him for it because I think that you can make a very reasonable argument for it.
It's very interesting to me too, in the fact that this is a team that I didn't think they needed a lot of offensive help, but then they went and got Rondale Moore. Then they go and acquire AJ Green, and okay, I get it. AJ Green a little dusty, but if we're talking about AJ Green as like the number 3 option, sign me up for that. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's all about expectations. If we're not expecting him to be the 1A or the lead dog, I'm good with it. Like AJ Green as a flanker, sign me up. Like I'm all about that.
And I like that too with Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore was a guy that
Exactly.
I think if he had to walk in as a wide receiver one somewhere, he would have been set up for just complete failure. But right now,
Mm-hmm.
just getting to play that role where he can kind of take those slot snaps away from Larry Fitzgerald, which I think Larry Fitzgerald is still technically on the team, isn't he? I don't think that he's
Yeah.
really announced his retirement, but we just
Right.
assume that Rondale Moore will be
Right.
starting ahead of Larry Fitzgerald. I love the team that they've put together. Christian Kirk is actually another guy that I'm kind of eyeballing
Right.
later in the drafts too. I think that people are forgetting about him, but he still could supplant AJ Green because what we saw last year, AJ Green, man, he looked like he was playing with 6-inch long cleats in the sand. I mean, he was slow, he couldn't jump, he couldn't separate. So
Yeah. No
maybe as the 3
separation.
option, he can have a better opportunity. But what I saw last year, man, was really disappointing from AJ Green.
Certainly, the injuries have been a concern over the last couple of seasons. Can he shake that off going to 2021? We shall see. All right. By the way, as you guys know, we are giving away 3 Best Ball Mania 2 entries, $25 each. Who doesn't like free stuff? It's $25, man. Who doesn't like it? All you got to be doing is subscribe to my YouTube page, and all you got to do is just guess our pick at any point here, at any point, any round, and then your name's going to get thrown into a big old hat shuffled around, and then we'll draw 3 winners near the end. But every single round, you can make your guesses as to who we are going to pick, and if you guess right, your name gets thrown into a hat. Whatever. $25 free entry into Best Ball Mania 2. It's $1 million contest. Who doesn't like? Again, it's a free entry into $1 million contest. Who doesn't like to do that? Just be watching this show, and again, the more correct guesses you get right, well, obviously, the more chances you get to win as well. All right, Kluge, we are, golly, what are we, about 5-6 picks away here. You told me before we started the show that you were thinking about going 0 wide receiver, which I had never done. And I know a lot of the people watching probably have not done as well, but you pivoted. Which I love. I love the fact that you were able to kind of sort of pivot midstream. You took Austin Eckler. You took Nuke Hopkins with the second pick. Where are we kind of sort of, what position group are we kind of sort of leaning here with our pick number 3?
So, I am kind of the 0 wide receiver guy. I've got it, my pinned tweet on my Twitter page. I've got it in my bio. And I talked to you about this a little bit off air, but it's something that I think it's just a really good way for people that are kind of new to fantasy football, just to lay out a strategy that can help them build a pretty solid team in redraft. But especially with best ball, you've got to swing for the fences sometimes and take the best
Yeah.
players that come to you. You're not going to win a $1 million contest by being conservative. So when you got a value like DeAndre Hopkins dropping into the second round, that's something that I just have no problem passing on. My go-to target here in the third round, and can you pull up the? Oh, I still see him there. Chris Carson is a guy that I have ranked inside my top 12. I absolutely love Chris Carson
Wow.
this year. The injuries have been a problem for quite some time. And I think the worst
Yeah.
part about it is those injuries always come during the fantasy playoffs. Like when we need him most, that's when he doesn't show up for us. So I think that there's just this emotional aspect to hating Chris Carson because he's burned so
Yeah.
many players. But everybody's talking about how Shane Waldron is going to come in and turn this into this high-flying offense, and I just don't realistically see that happening. Through the 4 years that he was the assistant coach over in LA, 3 of those 4 years, that LA Rams team was top 3 in rushing yards. So I think this is a
True.
team that's going to be a lot more balanced than people expect. And I get it. You can get excited about DK Metcalf and what he can do, but I still think that Chris Carson is the engine that is going to keep this team running. So that's who I'd be looking at. But what wide receivers do we have available? Got a little bit of time to
Julio
talk about it.
Jones is still there. Yeah, we got 15 seconds here. I think Tyler Lockett on that same squad is an interesting pick. So is Jamar Chase if you're trying to shoot for the moon. But
Let's go with Chris Carson here, and then we don't even have to look at running backs until round 14. We got two anchors that we can count on every single week, and that's what I like to have, is knowing that I have two guys that are just going to put up points for me every single week.
Let's take a look at some of these picks here that went right before us here. Allen Robinson, who I love in the third round. I think I saw Terry. There he is. Terry McLaurin also went there in the third round, who I think both of those gentlemen have an opportunity to be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. To get them in the third round, I think it's tremendous value. And those are guys that I consistently find myself gravitating towards there in the third round. Obviously, when you're in the back end, picking number 11 at the end of the third, on the turn, it's a little tough. All right, so 15 seconds here as I'm chattering away. But what are we thinking here?
You called him out, Tyler Lockett, man. I absolutely love Tyler Lockett.
There you go.
We're I don't know if that's really a stacked running back and wide receiver, but everybody is just falling in love with DK Metcalf. And I just wrote an 1,800 word article on DK Metcalf, and I'm. And I knew we were going to end up talking about this, James. I know I watched an episode that you and Matt Harmon did discussing DK Metcalf, and I just worry a little bit. 50% of his snaps last year came either on a go route or a slant route, and I'm really hoping that he can develop that a little bit. And, we've seen these clips in the offseason where he's making cuts and, running through his catches and looking a lot better. But I still think that Tyler Lockett is somebody who is just a screaming value. He was a wide receiver 16 3 years ago. Then the wide receiver 13. Last year, he finished as the wide receiver 8. And really what we've seen is just a completely different utilization of Tyler Lockett in this Seahawks offense. So for the first 4 years of his career, he was just a burner running down the field. Mm-hmm. And then Doug Baldwin retired. And since Doug Baldwin has left that team, we've seen Tyler Lockett's targets go up. We've seen his first downs go up. We've seen his yards after the catch go up. We've seen his ADOT drop. And I think that Tyler Lockett is kind of becoming that safety valve, that Doug Baldwin type role
100%.
For Russell Wilson. Yeah, and people still just think of him as this boomer bust player, and he certainly was last year. But over the course of a season, and especially in best ball, I absolutely love Tyler Lockett.
I think you hit it right on the head. In best ball, it doesn't matter. If you get any player that's going to give you a 50-point week, sign me up. You know what I mean? Does it in a lot of ways, it's nice, obviously, in redraft to get those weeks, but it does hurt when you have Tyler Lockett as, like, let's say your wide receiver 2, and he's getting you, 3 or 4 or 6 points following a 50-point week. It's tough, and I can understand the frustration. But in best ball, forget it, man. Forget about it. Like, you want guys that give you spike weeks, especially in these tournament-style formats. I love that pick there. And golly, at some point here, I got to take a look at the quarterback room. But, Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson, who is still available as well. I think those two guys certainly will be quarterbacks that we'll be targeting at some point.
I'd throw them both in the very near future. So we don't forget. I throw them both in the queue now just so we don't forget about them, because we need to get at least Kyler or Russ. That's a nice connection to have. So what do you think with this? It seems to be very polarizing how people feel that Shane Waldron is going to affect this Seattle offense. What do you think? I mean, are we going to see DK Metcalf take on a full alpha role, or do you think it's still going to be a pretty even split between the two?
Well, I mean, the guy's, again, he had a full alpha role last year. It was just an absolute savage. I think if we get what we got last year, I think everyone would be pretty happy with that. Certainly, I don't think anyone would be disappointed, not with where he's going in drafts. I will say this, more than Shane Waldron, more than anything else, I think the defense needs to get shored up. And I know that sounds weird. Like, well, what does that have to do with the offense? I honestly thought that they went away from the whole let Russ cook movement last year because the defense was historically bad. And it's not comfortable for Pete Carroll to be trying to win shootouts like 52-49. That's just not his style of football. And I think that's why they really dialed back the pass attempts. They tried to shorten up the game. They took the air out of the football a little bit because their defense was so bad. If they can get that shored up a little bit, and they try to address it this offseason, I do think they'll be a lot more comfortable letting Russ kind of work it out through the air and kind of relying on him all 4 quarters and not just asking him to bail them out in the 4th quarter. So I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on, at least early on.
Yeah, that's interesting. You don't hear that all the time that, we need this defense to get better so the offense can, compete a little more. But
Exactly.
yeah, you make a really good point because that just isn't Pete Carroll's game. He's not going to run this high flying air raid offense. He wants to stay in it.
Not, I
So
mean,
I think
listen,
I think now
not
is
not so long as the defense is that bad. I don't think he's that comfortable letting it fly. But yeah, but again, as I mentioned, man, it's like, listen, he has no problems running it up, though. You know what I mean? So, listen, he'll let Russ cook from ahead. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I feel about it. All right, so Kyler Murray goes right there at 9. We're kind of holding on to the seat of our pants. Oh, well, we are here. So what do you think, man?
I think we
You
can
know,
still hold off on Russ. I think Russ will
okay,
make it back to us in the next pick. Robbie Anderson is a guy that I really like. I really like Cortland Sutton too. I'm not really looking at the running backs in this range too much. Devonta Smith is another guy that I really like, but
you
you know
do.
what? Let's go with Cortland Sutton here. He's a guy that I've really been beating the drum for. Big fan of him. We already saw this guy produce at a very high level with terrible quarterback play. So everybody gets nervous about Drew Lock and nervous about Teddy Bridgewater and sure, I understand that you could be nervous about that, but this guy put up 1,100 yards with terrible quarterback play 2 years ago.
Terrible,
And we see this all the
terrible.
time where somebody gets injured and then people just completely forget how dominant they can be. So Cortland
Right.
Sutton is still young. He's got that alpha receiver build, and I think he can, easily put up another 1,200 yard season. And then here we,
All
we
right.
got to
So
go Russ. Even if it's a little bit
yeah,
of a reach, let's just go ahead and lock that in.
I kind of agree with you. You know, Chris Carson, Tyler Lockett, and again, we missed out on Kyler to pair with Nuke. But man, again, so much research has been done. Smarter people than myself have really looked into the numbers about stacking and how it is it gives you the best chance to win, especially in these these high stakes tournaments or whatever it might be. So getting Russell there again, I agree with you. Is it? I mean, it's just a touch of a reach. I don't think it's too bad though.
Yeah. And I'm okay reaching for it in a situation like that because we've got Carson and Lockett. So any week that they go off, which we've seen them, they're a team that could put up 40 points, put up 50 points.
Hmm.
And when those weeks happen, we're going to be pretty happy with that.
We just saw Robbie Anderson go. I've been pounding the table here for Daryl Henderson I think he's presents at least top
Always
20
forget
upside.
about that guy.
I know. And I
Uh,
don't think ADP is going to catch up. So for those folks watching on it, if you're playing best ball, great. Always kind of sort of try to look for him wherever you can. But especially in redraft, I'm telling you, this late in the game, Dave, like ADPs don't catch up. They just don't. And he was, Henderson was like a 12th round selection a week ago. And
mhm.
even with an injury, even with the door wide open for crazy volume, he's going in the 6th round. That is just unbelievable value. I've been saying, I think a lot of the numbers presented to me through Next Gen Stats would indicate that Henderson is just as good in that system as Cam Akers. And if you love Cam, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't love Daryl Henderson. And I think him going this late is just crazy value.
Yeah, and I don't want to say anything sacrilegious here, but when you're looking at the advanced stats, you could almost make an argument that Henderson was better than Akers last year. I mean,
Yeah,
he was
he was.
incredibly efficient with the opportunities that he got. He was a guy that I was targeting even before the Akers injury, getting him in the
Yeah,
11th, 12th, 13th round. He just seemed like such a great value, and
100%.
now those rosters are looking really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. All right, so we just about finishing here the 6th round. Let's take a quick look at our roster here, man. Russell Wilson, Austin Eckler, Chris Carson, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett, and Cortland Sutton. So we got a little bit of a Seattle stack going, which I'm not mad about. I'm not mad about that at all. But again, kind of talk about this roster build here, what you like about it, and what you're kind of sort of going to be focusing in on over the next few rounds.
So, I mean, these two running backs, I just love having two running backs. We talked about that. It's just two guys that you don't have to worry about. You only need to fill two running back slots every single week. So these
Right.
are two guys that unfortunately have struggled with injuries. So, I mean, we're asking a lot to get 34 games out of these two players. But, when they're healthy, Austin Eckler, when you look at his stats since the start of 29, or I'm sorry, starts since the start of 2019. So, there was the second half of 2019 where he was splitting carries with Melvin Gordon. But if you look at that first half of 2019 and then what he did last year, he is third in points per game behind Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook in PPR leagues. I mean, the
Amazing.
dude's just an absolute monster. And then Chris
Yeah.
Carson, I don't know if he is quite as efficient, but he is clearly Pete Carroll's go-to guy. They went out and they drafted DJ Dallas and they signed Carlos Hyde in the offseason. But it should just show you how much faith Pete Carroll had in those guys that they had to go out and sign Alex Collins off the street after a year and a half off of football. I don't think they have faith in anybody on that team besides Chris Carson. So he's a guy that
Yeah.
I expect to see a heavy utilization there. And then all of these wide receivers are guys that I'm also just, above the consensus on. Love DeAndre Hopkins. Already talked about how he can easily finish as the wide receiver one this year. Tyler Lockett, he was a fringe wide receiver one 2 years ago, finished as a wide receiver one last year. I expect it to happen again this year. And then Cortland Sutton, he's definitely the riskiest of this crew, but he
Hmm.
also has that, just everything you want to see in a wide
Yeah.
receiver one. And is he going to be a wide receiver one? Probably not, but it is in his range of outcomes. And when you're getting into that part of the draft, I like it.
All right, so our pick is coming up here. My heart hurts a little bit seeing some of these picks go off the board. I love
Yeah.
Mike Williams this year. Antonio Brown, again, if he wasn't just a complete wild card, he'd be going a lot
And
higher.
Visca too.
Yeah, Visca's there. Michael Pittman, I am just in love with Michael Pittman. So for him to go, especially this early, my God, it hurts my soul.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers just went right here, but what are we thinking here?
I mean, it was a kick in the gut. Those 4 receivers that just went off the board were the 4 guys that I wanted. But I think Juju right here is a great value. Juju finished as the number 1 guy last year out of this whole trio in Pittsburgh, and there's a lot of reasons to dislike him. I get it, the TikTok videos and whatever, but I still think that he's going to have a pretty strong role here. And I love Chase Claypool. I do. I think that Chase Claypool's ceiling is immense. But Juju is a
Right.
guy that if none of the other guys are showing up, if there's injuries, he'll still be able to put up some points.
All right, so it's a quick turnaround when you're picking 11th. Where are we thinking? We've got 2 running backs, 4 wide receivers.
I really like to load up on wide receivers, and I know that's a bit of a strange one, but Brandon Cooks is a guy right now that I am okay reaching on a little bit. I don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. I don't think that he is going to play this year or play in Houston,
No.
but on the off chance that he does, Brandon Cooks is easily a high-end wide receiver too. So that's a guy right now with him showing up to camp and the story kind of changing a little bit, the NFL saying they're not going to get involved. Brandon Cooks is a guy that I'm okay rolling the dice on.
That's interesting. It's funny too because Brandon Cooks is just. I mean, he's played on 12 different teams in 7 seasons or whatever. I mean, that's what at least it feels like. You know what I mean? And just every place he goes, the guy produces. And yeah, you could say, okay, well, he's played with good coaches and with good quarterbacks, but how many times have we seen, Dave, wide receivers go to new teams and flop because they don't pick up the playbook? You know what I mean? And this guy's just picked up all kinds of different playbooks and all kinds of different systems, and he just fits and he just works and he just continues to put up production. And I agree with you. Do we know what's going to happen there in Houston with the quarterback situation? Absolutely not. I mean, I think Tyrod Taylor's is in line, but given his rotten luck, man, I would probably see one of these Davis Mills or something, quarterbacking the Houston Texans. But I just think regardless of who it is, he has shown throughout his career that he can produce at a pretty good level.
Yeah, and everybody likes to point out that he played with Deshaun Watson and Tom Brady and Drew Brees and all these great quarterbacks, but he also produced pretty darn well when he was with Jared Goff.
Yes.
So I think that people are really quick to write off Brandon Cooks, and he still just has that label on him as injury prone, which I don't agree with at all. Concussions are something I don't know, they're very fluky picking up concussions, and that's what set him out
Yeah.
of some games a while back.
Sure.
I'm somebody that really likes to target players that have that injury prone title because everybody else gets scared off by them. I know how fluky injuries are. It's not something that I put a lot of weight into. So I really like taking the value picks on those guys that have that injury prone tag, as you can see by Brandon Cooks, Tyler Lockett, Austin Eckler, and Chris Carson.
I love the fact that this team is, again, just, you talk about that injury label, man, but golly, this is a team that's either going to do extremely well or just going to get ravaged and just be out of it by week 4. But hey, that's how you got to play these tournaments, man. Swing for it.
So let's and I want to get your feedback on this one a little bit, because I'm a guy that if I miss out on those early tight ends, like if I can't get one in the first 2 rounds, and I love when George Kittle drops to me in round 3. I mean, I feel like my best teams are the ones where I can get Kittle in the 3rd round. I feel like people are just sleeping on him so much again this year. But really, I mean, what I'm doing, if I can't get those guys, I'm almost waiting until like the 13th round before I'm even looking at tight ends, and I'm getting, which would be funny for this team, Gerald Everett, But Jonnu Smith is another guy that I'm looking at. Evan Ingram is a guy I'm looking at. I'm okay taking those guys a little bit later and just
Yeah.
kind of punting on tight ends completely if I can't get an early guy.
Well, I think there are so many interesting players super, super late. Like Jared Cook, for example, is somebody that I don't think is getting enough attention. Cole Kmet, like I get it, like but the bottom line is like young tight ends never do anything. Like you have to wait on them. You know what I mean? Like they're like good athletic young tight ends. Like they need time to develop, and he was one of the highly regarded prospects coming out, whatever year it was that he came out. And I think he's interesting. With the injury, obviously they're in New Orleans. Somebody like Adam Troutman, who I think, profiles as a really good player as well, is somebody I'm willing to kind of go for in like round 10 or round 11. But I'm with you. I'm okay waiting on tight end as well.
Let's see what running backs we got here, though, because I think we're pretty good on wide receivers for a bit. Really like Ronald Jones. I mean, this is where I really start to like looking at running backs again, and we might go running back here. Love Zach Moss, love AJ Dillon. Let's go with AJ Dillon here because I think I actually have him ranked a little bit ahead of Zach Moss. He's a guy that I think has weekly standalone value as a flex player. And if anything happens to Aaron Jones, he's instantly an RB1. So AJ Dillon is a guy I'm trying to come out of every single best ball draft with.
The fact that he is also an athletic freak, I know he's working on his hands, but I mean, a guy who's 250 some odd pounds and can run a 4.5, 540 is just, he's Brandon Jacobs with wheels. You know what I mean? Like, forget about it. Like, this guy absolutely, I think, has standalone value. I'll continue that point in just a bit, in just a minute here. But who else are we thinking?
Throw Zach Moss in the queue just in case. But I want to see what quarterbacks are available because this is usually if Ryan Tannehill is still on the board, we don't get any sort. Somebody already took Tannehill, so we missed out on that. Let's go ahead and take Zach Moss here, and then we'll wait on that second quarterback just a little bit. I'm pretty confident with Russ. I don't think that you need to grab a quarterback too early, but Ryan Tannehill is a guy that I have been taking as my QB2 a lot. Like, I think that his upside is crazy. He is just below that elite tier, and people just aren't catching on to it for some reason.
He's going so late, and he's going with a similar price tag as Matt Ryan, which just drives me crazy. Like, what are we talking about over here? It's like the guy just put up big time stats last year. Now you add Julio Jones to the mix. Forget it. Ryan Tannehill also gives you a decent rushing floor too. Like, golly, I absolutely love Ryan Tannehill this year, especially at cost.
Yeah, and he gives you the rushing floor, but he also gives you a lot of rushing touchdowns. He loves to run it when they get close to the end zone. So, I mean, we've seen Ryan Tannehill pop for those 40, 45-point weeks, and that's exactly what you want in best ball. And I can't wrap my mind around it. I cannot understand why Ryan Tannehill, he's got the two best, or not the two best wide receivers, but he's got the best wide receiver duo in the entire league in A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. He's got a phenomenal, efficient running back, and he's got wheels of his own. And, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of bummed that we missed out on Ryan Tannehill there.
And he did it last year. It's not like we're projecting here. The guy had 40 touchdowns. You know what am I missing here? Like, if we're projecting, we're going to say, okay, listen, he's going to get 40 touchdowns again. If that happens, my God, unbelievable value, tremendous value. He's going to finish as a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and you're getting him as like the quarterback 9 or 10. Come on, like, the guy's he's undervalued right now. And I'm with you. I absolutely love taking him wherever he goes in fantasy drafts. Okay. I just wanted to put a button on the whole AJ Dillon talk. But Matt LaFleur, going even back to his days in Tennessee, when he was manufacturing touches for freaking Dion Lewis, like, he will not and does not believe in this whole bell cow system, right? Like, he's going to use two backs. They get rid of Jamal Williams. Yes, Aaron Jones is certainly going to get his fair share of touches, but if you're expecting a 70-30 split, I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. I'm looking at a 60-40 split at a minimum, if not 50-50. And I think it's going to hurt a lot of Aaron Jones fans out there. But that's what Matt LaFleur does. He absolutely splits carries between his two backs.
And what I'd like to point out is like that he has done that, and we've seen it for the last 2 years where Aaron Jones was splitting touches with Jamal Williams, and we saw it all over Twitter, hashtag free Aaron Jones. But even with that, small role splitting touches, it didn't stop him from finishing as the RB2 and the RB5 over the last 2 seasons. So I mean, his efficiency, his ability to hit that home run ball and just score from
Right.
anywhere on the field.
Yeah.
I,
Touchdowns
I
big
don't
time.
know exactly how AJ Dillon is going to work into this. You look at his size and his stature, and you assume, oh, he's going to be the goal line back, but Aaron Jones is extremely efficient from the goal line. Once
Mm-hmm.
he gets in that red zone, he's got a real nose for the end zone. So I don't know exactly how it's going to split. I've heard a lot of camp reports that he's working on his abilities as a pass catcher. So it might just be that type of split that we saw with Jamal Williams, where some drives are Aaron Jones's drives and some are
Right.
AJ Dillon's drive, and they might not
Right.
have roles. They might just be spelling each other throughout the entire season.
Gotta be surprised. I'm a little bit surprised that Emmanuel Sanders goes this early. I love him as a late round wide receiver. I think this might be one of the earliest I've seen him go here in the middle of the 11th round, to be honest with you. But I do love that pick. I think he's going to be a big time contributor for Buffalo. All right, so our pick,
Agreed.
Dave, here is coming up in a couple of picks. And again, all you guys got to do is guess our pick. I know it's a little bit harder for fans of the show because you've never seen Dave draft before, and it's very different than what I do. So it's going to be
I'll
a
give you
little
a
bit
hint.
harder.
I'll give you a hint for my next pick. If you can see what's sitting over my shoulder.
Okay, there you go. All right, there you go.
Let's do it. Justin Fields, man. I
Let's
think he's
do
going to
it.
be starting the majority of the season. I think week 4 is the absolute latest that we see Justin
Yes.
Fields take the field. So, people are discounting him right now because of the uncertainty of when he's going to play. But when he does play, he has it well within his range of outcomes to finish as a QB1. So, love me some Justin Fields. And I'm hoping that he can turn this franchise around just a little bit.
Wow, the picks are just flying off the board fast and furious here. We're back on the clock again. And we just took quarterback. We've got, 4 running backs, 5 wide receivers. We can really go any direction you'd like here, Dave.
Yep. There's 2 guys that I'm looking at right now that I really love, Paris Campbell and David Johnson. And David Johnson is a guy that last year, when you look on a per game basis, he was pretty much an RB1. He was right outside of RB1 territory. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty with Philip Lindsay there, but these are 2 guys that I really like. We got Paris Campbell. I'm happy with that one too. I'm happy with the running backs that we have. So that I'm glad that we queued up Paris Campbell first, because Paris Campbell is a guy that, we talk about manufactured touches all the time, and they want to get Paris Campbell the ball. We saw it. He got 9 targets in the one game that he played last year before getting injured. And I'm with you. I'm very much in the Michael Pittman camp. I love Michael Pittman. I'm trying to draft him wherever I can. But I think people are so hyped about Michael Pittman that they're just completely forgetting about Paris Campbell, who's a great player in his own aspect.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Carson Wentz can kind of sort of bring to the table. Obviously, a bigger arm than what they have had, in seasons. Well, I guess last season with Phillip Rivers. I think downfield throws are not necessarily Carson Wentz's strength. But again, T.Y. Hilton obviously getting long in the tooth here. There's going to be some target opportunity for both Paris Campbell and especially Michael Pittman, who I think really, really came on, especially at the back end of 2020. So excited for his 2021 prospects. But again, I just want to remind folks, if you are trying to get that $25 free entry into Best Ball Mania 2, all you got to do is guess our pick. Just throw it out there into the chats. And our guy Sal Pal working diligently in the background will collect all the pertinent information for you guys. All right. Let's talk about the squad.
We need some tight ends. We need some tight ends. That's what we need.
I got
next.
you.
I use the term punt on tight end, but I'm not punting until the 17th to 18th round. Like I said, 13th, 12th. That's usually when I start looking at tight ends, and we're at that spot now. But Jonnu Smith already got taken. Jonnu Smith is a guy that I love. But Gerald Everett and Evan Ingram are 2 other tight ends that I really, really like. And, they're still a ways out. So I don't know if they're going to make it back to us in 13 picks, but I'm really happy with either of those guys as my first tight end.
I'd have to look at the board, but I bet you anything that I bet you one of those 2 guys will certainly survive. Just looking at how these guys have drafted their tight ends before. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's
it looks like
Let's see how it
everyone's
looks.
got a couple tight ends.
All right.
Well,
So
there goes Ingram.
Ingram went. I'm always kind of torn on Ingram, like the sentiment around Evan Ingram is so negative because of the drops and the big time drops that we see, especially we saw during Island games. But golly, you look at that offense and they're built to kind of score a lot of points if everyone stays healthy. That's really all you want from your tight end, is it not? Like touchdown opportunities, really.
And that's what I love about Jared Cook. I don't think that Jared Cook is a guy that's going to see 100 targets, but I think
Right.
that what he has developed into late in his career is just a target hog once they get close to the end zone. So I don't think that he's going to see probably more than 60 targets this year. But it wouldn't shock me if we see a Robert Tunyon type season where with those 60, 70 targets, he can turn it into 8 to 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be absolutely wonderful. All right, so there are, Gerald Everett, especially would work with our Russell Wilson Seattle stack. Makes a lot of sense. Sal Powell says Kylan Granson is still available. Kylan Granson has become the unofficial tight end of this show. And he's just this random rookie backup tight end in Indianapolis. I had never heard of
Oh,
the guy. Oh no, did Gerald Everett really go? He really
Gerald
went.
Everett went. We missed out on the super, super, super stack of the Seattle Seahawks.
That would have been amazing.
There goes
Unfortunate that it
Gronk.
did not work out. And Gronk
Oh
goes
man.
too.
Well, let's
Golly,
pull up the tight ends because I'm
yeah,
tilting here now.
we're running out of options, bro.
Well, Hunter Henry's a guy that I don't mind. Hunter Henry and Jared Cook. Those are two guys that I don't think are going to see a lot of opportunity and targets, but I think they're both going to have touchdown upside, and that's what you look for. So let's queue up both of those guys and see if we can get them not at the turn, but close enough to the turn. We'll see if we can get both
Sure.
of these guys here.
Now you do have
Ooh,
Justin
that was a brutal one.
Fields. Yeah, that
Yeah, Cole
that
Kmet
that
worries me
that
though. Jimmy Graham,
okay.
Jimmy Graham is still there, and I'm a big Cole
Nah,
Kmet fan, but I think that people are a little bit too bullish on him right now. So let's go with
I
Hunter
got
Henry
you.
first here.
All right, let's talk about Hunter Henry, because I got to be honest with you, Dave. This guy Kluge is somebody that I literally have never drafted, and I'm not sure that I will. I'm extremely worried about a team that had the second fewest pass attempts in the league last year. I get it. They get Mac Jones. Well, let's make this pick, and then we can discuss the Hunter Henry pick.
So we already talked about Jared Cook. So let's go ahead and get him just for the touchdown upside. If this guy can get 8 to 10 touchdowns this year, he just blows this ADP out of the water. So I don't mind Jared Cook there.
I love the back to back tight end picks too. Like, that's not bad. I kind of like it. I dig it, actually.
And this is usually where I go for it, is in this, like I said, the 12th, 13th round. And the guys that somebody took Jonnu very early. Somebody took Ingram earlier than I normally see. Tight ends went off the board a little bit quicker than I'm used to.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
really
Oh
like doing
yeah.
that. Back-to-back tight ends in the 12th, 13th, 14th round. Get two guys that aren't great, aren't terrible, but have decent weekly upside.
Right. And basically, you just need one of them to pop every single week, and you're kind of hoping they don't happen on the same week.
Right.
But certainly, touchdown upside is there. Okay, now going back to the whole New England tight end situation, it seems like a crowded situation there with the tight ends. I know they're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. That's at least what they do there under Bill Belichick. But man, again, second fewest pass attempts in the NFL last year. It seems like a crowded tight end situation. Talk to me about why you actually like Hunter Henry, though.
Well, $50 million. I mean, that's the main reason. I don't think that you pay a guy $50 million not to heavily utilize him in the offense. And Jonnu Smith is clearly my
It's a good
favorite.
point.
I think that Jonnu Smith is a guy that's going to get a lot more opportunity. So, it was heartbreaking to see him get picked before we had a chance to. And you talked about it. They didn't really do a lot last year through the passing game. But this year they brought in Hunter Henry, they brought in Jonnu Smith, they brought in Kendrick Bourne, they brought in Nelson Aguilar. I mean, this team is clearly committed to doing things differently than they did last year. The one thing that scares me is when you're looking at tight ends, you're looking for guys that have that touchdown upside. And I don't know if
Hmm.
Hunter Henry does, because they have so many red zone weapons. Cam Newton
Right.
is a threat to run the ball at the goal line. They just drafted Ramondre Stevenson, who I think is going to take over as soon as they get in the red zone. And then Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, even Kendrick Bourne is a solid guy there once they get close. So he definitely worries me a little bit, and he's not a guy that I've drafted too much either. But I was tilting a little bit, and I feel like there's a big fall off. I don't like Ferkser, Komet, Jarwin, Hooper, Ebron. I don't really like any of these guys. And as much as I
Yeah,
love
sure.
Mo Alley Cox as a really, really late pick, I'm trying to wind my exposure down on Mo Alley just a bit.
There you go. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. All right. Our pick is going to be coming up here soon. I don't know where are we leaning? Obviously, we just took two tight ends.
I'm going back to wide receivers, I think. I think
Okay.
that's what we need to do, is fill out this wide receiver core a little bit. I really like going heavy on wide receivers, especially when you can
Yeah.
lock in those early running backs and get, a lot of my builds end up being 2, 4, 10, 2, where I get two quarterbacks, 3 or 4 running backs, and then I just load up with 10 wide receivers because, even if, you get 4 of them that go off, that those are the guys that I'm trying to get in my flex. I'm not expecting
Right.
AJ Dillon to outscore all of my guys. So, I like the hyper fragile lineups in these big tournaments. So,
Sure.
there's a very good chance that we just hammer wide receiver for the next 4 picks.
I like it, man. I'm all about that life. Let's do it. Okay, so all right, so it's kind of a clue for those folks trying to make guesses here, but who do you like?
Did somebody take MVS already? I'm assuming he's off the board because I think he's a little bit. Yeah, it looks like it. Man,
Yeah.
MVS. People are getting all my guys here. Well, let's go with Amari Rodgers. I want to have a piece of this Packers. I don't know if it's going to be Amari Rodgers, Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Randall Cobb. I don't know who it's going to be, but late in these drafts, I often take 2 Green Bay receivers and just hope that, they're going to end up paying out for me. You can get them in the 16th, 17th, 18th round. So,
Right.
don't be surprised if we end up taking Alan Lazard a little bit ago, or in a little bit.
I kind of think did I see him go too?
Yeah, somebody took it. Oh, they're both gone. Wow.
They're both
Wow.
gone. Isn't that
Well,
crazy?
there's a rookie. We talked about rookies that we like a little bit, and there's 2 that I really like here. I like Dwayne Eskridge and I like Nico Collins. I'll leave this one to you, James. Who do you like between those 2 guys?
Well, listen, guy. I mean, we have the stack going. How do you get away from the stack?
Why not?
You got to go
let's
Dwayne.
do it. Let's do it. All right. Dwayne Eskridge. I like it. And the thing is, Nico Collins is probably coming back to us in the 17th.
Yeah. Let's be real. I don't think too many folks are highlighting or starring up Nico Collins.
Can we talk about how this is like the fastest draft that I've ever seen, too?
It is so fast.
It's 42 minutes, and we're in the 16th round.
We're going to be done in 45 minutes. It's unbelievable. And you know what's funny is that we're the ones, because we're putting on the show or whatever, like we're the ones holding it up. Like we're taking, all 30 seconds to make both of our picks or whatever it is.
Right.
So, golly, it'd be much faster if it wasn't for us.
How about it? So who are some of the guys
by the way,
you like
should be
taking?
noted that Xavier Jones did go there, and again, the Rams, they're going to employ some kind of committee. Like obviously, I've just hyped the hell out of Darrell Henderson, but no matter what, Sean McVay is going to work in other running backs as well. Xavier Jones certainly could be that dude out of SMU. Maybe it's Jake Funk out of Maryland. I don't know, but somebody's going to get some touches.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think it might be Melvin Gordon or Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley or some of these veterans that are still floating around out there. It wouldn't shock me. My gut reaction said that they were going to trade for Melvin Gordon. And everything I've read said that isn't going to happen now at this point.
Right.
But there's still some veterans out there that can, step in and do something.
Oh, look at Nico Collins getting taken off. I bet you anything the Siege is actually watching our stream. I would not be surprised if that was the case, actually, to be honest with you. But that's okay.
I saw one person say that they're waiting on me in a slow draft right now, which is pretty funny. I tweeted it out a couple weeks ago, and I was like, hey, where are my best ball junkies at? I'm looking for people that can fill up rooms. And we built this group chat on Twitter with like 80-something people in there.
Wow.
And I can start a draft, fired off into this, and it fills within 30 seconds every single time. It's just a bunch of best ball degenerates.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. All right. Our pick is coming up here. Obviously, we're thinking wide receiver. Where are you leaning?
There's one running back that I'd take if he's still available. Do you want to see if Darrington Evans is still on the board? And he is. He is. I saw him up there.
Yeah, there he is.
This is another guy that I think, has pretty good upside and will also have somewhat of a weekly floor. He was taking some of his reps with the wide receivers in camp. And that's the one thing that's really been missing from this offense since Dion Lewis, or not Dion Lewis. It was Dion Lewis. They haven't had a pass catching back in a few years. And I think this is just going to be a very different looking Titans team than we're used to seeing. They're not just going to be running it down the throat every single play. You don't bring in Julio Jones for $15 million a year to hand the ball off to Derrick Henry 300 times. So I think that there's going to be a lot of changes.
Are you sure about that, though?
It would be pretty silly to, they let Jonnu Smith walk and then they sign Julio Jones just to take on that blocking role.
I got to be honest with you. I got to be honest with you. I'm not that confident. I mean, everything what you're saying makes obviously logical sense. But I don't know, man. I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry is one of those guys that I just really, really struggle to get behind this year. I have almost no exposure on him because he's typically going in the top 5 or 6, and it worries me at that age.
Falling past 5, yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
He's got 850 touches over the last 2 seasons as well. All right, so here we are. We're on the board. is Darrington Evans the pick? There's also some interesting wide receivers.
Yeah, go to the wide receivers. Let's see who's there. And if we can't decide on anyone, it'll auto pick Darrington Evans.
Yeah.
No, man, let's go with Darrington Evans on this one.
Okay.
And then one of my favorite last picks is well, I guess we can't say it if people are trying to guess, so I'll wait till we get to the pick and give people some time to get their guesses in the chat.
My crazy, out of nowhere prediction is I think we're going to see Adrian Peterson in a Titans uniform. I just think that if Derrick Henry were to suffer an injury, okay, so here we are, last pick, and then we can discuss. I really am not picking at the turn because I can't talk. I can't give analysis on any of these picks, man.
I think I lost you for a quick second there. All right. Donovan Peoples-Jones is the guy that I love. Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Okay.
That's who I want. Did I freeze up there for a second? I feel like I lost you for a couple seconds there.
Yeah. Hold on. Oh, God. Let me get him.
Oh, just in the nick of time. How about it?
Yeah, that was not bad. My hands were shaking, guys. I was like, oh God, hurry up, get him.
No, we got him.
Just snuck in there.
Love that weekly upside. Right, cool. He even if he can count for 1 or 2 good weeks throughout the entire course of a season, isn't that kind of what you're hoping for with your 18th pick? Yeah. It's just a guy that can count like once or twice. That's all you need.
Do you think there is increased upside with Peoples-Jones, DPJ, as the kids call him, if Odell were to miss any time? Like, obviously we think about handcuffs and all those things with running backs. It exists to a lesser degree, but certainly does exist to some extent with wide receivers as well.
Yeah, and he fills in that role when Odell Beckham isn't there. So
right.
If Odell plays a full 17 games, I think that really caps his upside. But we saw it last year when Odell wasn't around. That's when Donovan Peoples-Jones really shined. They're very similar players. Not skill wise, but skill set wise. They play the same type of role. So
they line up and do those things right.
Mm-hmm. And what's the word on Odell? Is he in camp? Is he fully healthy? Are we expecting him back week 1? I haven't heard too much out of the Browns camp so far.
Right. I agree with you. And that's always worrisome, especially for a player who has struggled with injuries throughout his entire career. Really, when you break it down, it's like, how many healthy seasons has he really had? 2? So yeah, no, he struggled with health. And when you're kind of sort of not hearing positive news, especially in the time of the off season where all the news is positive, that's why I'm a little bit worried about Saquon too, right? Like the fact that this is the part of the off season where, like, let's be real, like guys get hyped, and everyone's got the rose colored glasses on. So when Saquon's telling you, well, I might not be ready at the start of the season, it gets you a little bit concerned. And to a much lesser extent, when we talk about OBJ, kind of no news. I don't know if no news is good news, if that makes any sense.
That's kind of how I feel. Yeah. Because you want them coming out saying that, this player looks great, he's progressing. And when you hear we'll wait and see, or you don't hear anything at all, yeah, it's worrisome. And Saquon was a guy that I was really targeting pretty heavily. And then I talked with Stefani Bell over at ESPN a couple weeks ago. I had her on my show, and we were just kind of recapping all the injuries. And she went on for about 8 minutes straight talking about Saquon Barkley.
I think we have a little bit of a freeze with Dave. I think we got him back.
This is strange. This just started happening to me this week. I never have any connectivity issues, and then just this week it started happening. But yeah, what I was saying is she just went on and on about why there are so many red flags with Saquon Barkley and what the team is saying and what he's saying, and I'm starting to get a little worried about Saquon.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. Interesting. All right, so let me try to pull up our team and the draft. Let's see here. If I can get this going. Let me stall a little bit as I make a couple of clicks here. But I got to say, Dave, I think overall, I was very intrigued by your build. And again, it's one of those situations where it is certainly a team that I am not used to drafting, but I think I learned so much hearing kind of like your thought process behind the build that I am very intrigued by it, and I kind of would love to kind of sort of talk you through what you kind of sort of saw, and how you felt like you did.
Yeah, I mean those are two guys right now. First of all, what do you kind of try to limit your exposure at? And I like asking a lot of people this question when it comes to certain players because we talked about this pre-show, and like I just can't not draft Chris Carson in the third. He's a guy that I have ranked as my RB12, and it just makes so much sense. And when he's sitting there at
Uh-huh.
the end of the third, I can't help myself, and I'm sitting at above 50% exposure on Chris Carson right now, and it's worrying me. But where do you limit your exposure?
I find myself, drafting guys like Tyreek Hill a lot. Just no matter where I am in the draft, I just think that KC offense is just going to be off and running. They short up the offensive line. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill is in the prime of his career as well. So I just feel like I've got a lot of Tyreek Hill in a lot of different builds, and I just continue to kind of slam Terry McLaurin at cost. And I just am so excited about what he can do. I think F1 can really, really take off here in 2021. I guess, to be honest with you, Dave, I guess I just don't understand like how he falls into the third round every single time. So if I'm anywhere there in the second round, I'm kind of sort of itching to go get Terry McLaurin. Especially if I'm on the back half, if I'm on the early part of the draft order, I'll take him at the end of the second, early third.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin's a guy that I just did a deep dive on. And I always like to say that, like this is where the consensus is on this guy. And I think he's better than consensus, or I think he's worse than the consensus. And I did this dive on Terry McLaurin. And basically what I came up with is, yeah, he's right where he should be as a high end wide receiver too. I think that there's so much happening in Washington. I was so excited when Fitzpatrick landed there because that was a huge
Right.
quarterback upgrade for him. But since then, bringing in Curtis Samuel, signing Diami Brown, extending Logan Thomas. There's a lot of things that scare me a little bit. The things that Terry McLaurin had going for him
Mhm.
were just an elite target share and the opportunity. He was like 1 and 2 in basically every opportunity metric that you can look at. So now, having some competition with somebody like Curtis Samuel, who's garnered over 200 targets over the last 2 seasons, worries me just a bit. And the same thing with Allen Robinson, who's like a guy that I love, especially as a Bears fan. But if they were to go out and
Right.
bring in three capable receivers in the offseason, I'd be worried about Allen Robinson too. And I as much as I like Terry McLaurin, I feel like his numbers were a bit inflated because of that insane opportunity we've seen over the last few years.
Volume is
But
king in
this is where
fantasy football, but I
it is.
think that the efficiency will go through the roof, and I kind of sort of think the opportunity will actually be similar. Fitzgerald is not a guy that kind of spreads it around, like he likes two guys and he's going to go to those guys repeatedly. Certainly not worried about the rookie, but I do think Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin will be there, guys. I did want to announce the winners here for the Best Ball Mania 2 free entries. Let's see here. We got Devin McIntyre, Sam Chowdhury, and Masked Enigma. I think Sam, if I'm not mistaken, has Sam won before? So again, it's like, listen, if you're subscribed to the YouTube page, my YouTube page, and you're watching this stream, it's like you're not just limited to one entry. You're not just limited to winning this thing one time. So that's kind of what I love about this whole format is that, hey, listen, man, we're going to reward our loyal fans and our loyal viewers too. So I've definitely seen Sam in the chat. So if he hasn't won one before, congratulations. I know you've been in the chats and I know you've been watching a lot of these programs. So congratulations there. Certainly appreciate the support and happy that you won the $25 free entry. All right. Now, while I got you here, Dave, before we get you out of here, I know you're extremely busy. You're everywhere today, which I love. But if you can, take a look at the draft board. Show me a team that you are either impressed by or maybe scratching your dome a little bit saying, that is a interesting build and something that you would not have done. But either way, just something that sticks out to you, a team that either sticks out to you or maybe a group of picks that sticks out to you either positively or negatively.
Hawkberg. that whoever had the 101, and I feel like it's just almost a cheat code to have the 101 this year. I mean, you just getting McCaffrey early, and then
Yeah.
everything that he did is exactly how you want to play that from the 101. You get yourself Christian McCaffrey, get yourself an elite wide receiver, get yourself one of the top 3 tight ends, still get yourself a top, Lamar Jackson is my QB1 overall, and then even waiting a little bit and getting Joe Burrow as a QB2, that's going to be a really, really, really tough team to beat. And I mean, even
I
the
feel
later
like
picks
he
that he
got.
made.
I feel like I tell you what, man. I feel like he took a lot of like, I don't know, buzzy names. Tony Pollard, Jalen Waddle, buzzy. And then later on, well, I mean, everyone who
Yeah,
watches
now that
any of
I'm
my
looking at the end, I'm
programs.
not as crazy about that team. Really knocked it out of the park in the first half of the draft, though.
But I absolutely love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's going to be an early contributor there in Detroit. But yeah, I guess on the back end, it's kind of interesting. Like he really was aggressive off the top, and then I don't know about you, but I just feel like he kind of sort of went safe after pick 10. Like Russell Gage, that's
You
just
almost
a
wonder if
safe
he got a
pick.
work call and just went straight into auto pick.
Maybe, I don't know. Cole Beasley, another safe pick. Like Jamison Crowder, safe pick. Like I don't know. If you believe in De'Ami Brown, okay, I could see that one trying to be like an upside pick. But Blake Jarwin, for example, another pick. Noah Gray is interesting because of the reports that we got today. Surrounding. Oh my gosh, I'm just blanking right now. As I'm trying to like sort through this guy's entire roster, but Travis Kelce.
So I completely missed that today. What reports did we get about Kelsey?
I guess he had to leave practice today with a back, and maybe there's some concern there or worry there, but honestly, I'm not
Dude's
worried
a tank.
about it.
Dude is a tank. He doesn't miss
he's
games.
He's a machine. He's an absolute machine. But yeah, no, it's interesting. He really was aggressive early on, and then in the back end was extremely conservative. And I think you and I had both talked about this. If you want to win this thing, and we're talking about high stakes format here, just try to knock him out. Every single pick, just try to knock it out. Every single pick should be a pick where you feel like, okay, if something happens, this is a lottery ticket for me. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and I don't necessarily know if Cole Beasley, Jamison Crowder, and Russell Gage, Blake Jarwin, I don't necessarily know if they fit that bill. But
Yeah.
again,
taking 3 tight ends
great
after
early.
getting taking 3 tight ends
Yeah,
after
right.
getting
Yeah,
Kittle is a little
that's
strange, too.
interesting. Yeah,
So
that is
we
interesting.
were doing this. What was the one pick that I made that you just wanted to? I saw you roll your eyes a couple times, James.
No, absolutely not.
What was the one pick that was just a head scratcher here for us?
I am. You're starting to slowly turn me on Chris Carson. I'm not convinced that he's going to be a player that returns value. But you're slowly but surely making me kind of question that, and now I feel like I've got to go back and kind of reassess that roster and reassess his role. I guess the one thing that I don't really like about Chris Carson, especially early, is the fact that I'm questioning his pass catching work. And when you're taking a running back there in the first 3 rounds, I want to be guaranteed that he will be seeing, minimum 40 targets, and I'm not 100% sure, but again, now that you mentioned Chris Carson, all these things, like I almost feel like I've got to go and reassess that roster and that team build. So that is certainly something that is interesting to me. Juju Smith-Schuster.
What if I told you that he had
Yes.
46 targets last year in 12 games, and he had 47 targets in 15 games the year before?
Yeah, see, that's interesting
It's
to me.
sneaky. People don't think that. Like he saw a career high in targets per game last year. He's seen progression over the last 3 years. He's seen more and more progression in the passing game, and that's the thing is people kind of look at him just as this bulldozer, and they think that he's kind of a Derrick Henry, like a poor man's Derrick Henry, but. He's a little bit more of a scat back than people realize. He can get out there. He runs a pretty good wheel route. And the other thing is once they get in the red zone, he's the only guy. I mean, the only time I've ever seen him come off the field in the red zone was when he tapped his helmet and he pointed at Rashad Penny and he took himself off the field. I mean, that's the guy that they want there, hammering the ball in. So huge touchdown upside and an increased usage in the passing game. He's a guy that I think people are sleeping on. And, it's one of those things. I feel like people really hate when guys have poor draft capital, and it just follows them around forever. We saw with Arian Foster. It took people like 5 years to finally get on the
Right.
Arian Foster train. People are still fading to Aaron Jones, and Chris Carson just
Right.
kind of fits into that same thing where he didn't have the draft capital. A lot of people didn't know who he was coming in as a rookie, and now 4 years later, he's been producing, and people still don't want to really believe it.
The bottom line is Chris Carson has been an impact real life NFL player since day one.
Right.
And that is true. So I hear you. And honestly, I am starting to reconsider now Chris Carson there in the third round. I think the only other pick for me, and again, I loved everything that you did here. Zach Moss. I just, again, when you have someone like Josh Allen and you've got all those wide receivers, what's the touchdown upside for Zach Moss? And I get it. You want the starting running back in a really great offense. That's what you want. That being said, I just don't think the touchdown upside for Zach Moss is there. And mostly it's because Josh Allen is just so damn good in goal-to-go situations. And I just think that he's going to steal a lot of what the touchdown upside could potentially be there for the lead back in a great offense. I just don't think it's going to be there, though, for Zach Moss.
Yeah, and Zach Moss, they were actually giving him red zone touches last year. I believe he had 8 goal line carries, and he just wasn't really good at converting them, unfortunately. So I think that what we saw last year was that they want Zach Moss to be a part of it. And I don't know if it was the injury that kind of slowed him down and struggled to get up to speed his rookie year. I think that's got to be it. But like you said, once you get into that 10th round, you're really swinging for the fences with just about everyone. And at the end of the day, he is the lead back on a very elite offense. And the other thing that jumps out to me with Zach Moss is that they had an opportunity to get Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, all of these free agents that were available. They could have drafted somebody and they didn't. So that makes me think that they have some sort of confidence in Zach Moss because they could have addressed that running back situation. Everybody expected them to, and they did it.
Or it could be the fact that the Bills have just completely embraced analytics and they just are like, nope, we're not investing any capital or any money into running back.
Very, very likely.
It's possible. I mean, we're talking about a team that transformed themselves from this ground and pound attack into this spread offense all of a sudden out of nowhere. Talk about the Stones in Buffalo to go ahead and go do that. I love that about what they did there. They ran the second most 4 wide receiver sets in the NFL last year. I think they ran the highest percentage of 3 wide receiver sets, if I'm not mistaken. If they're not 1, they're certainly 2 or 3. You know what I mean? So they're going to be spreading it around plenty. But you're right. I think Zach Moss is going to be one of those dudes that is going to look great between the 20s, man. And will be a consistent contributor. And when you're getting the lead back in a great offense in round 10, yeah, you're actually doing pretty good for yourself. So like I said, I really liked your draft. I really did. It's just, for whatever reason, I find myself gravitating towards wide receivers in that range. And I really, honestly, in every range. And I try to find value running backs with upside. I am a drafter, Dave, that relies on carnage and chaos. You know what I mean? If everything holds form, all of my best ball teams are going to be trash. But it's those teams that, we see churn at running back. Those are the teams, and I'm hoping that I pick the right guys. We always see churn at running back, so you're hoping that you pick the right guys. But certainly that is sort of kind of how I've built my best ball rosters. All right. You see it on your screen there. Deposit $10 in a new Underdog fantasy account. Get a free 4for4 Pro sub plus 25 Underdog bucks. Use that promo code BBL. There, my friends, there is not a better deal in fantasy than if you are a brand new depositor to Underdog. $10 is going to get you a free 4for4 subscription plus $25 Underdog bucks. Come on. You can't beat that deal. It's a great deal. And I strongly encourage folks to do it if you have not done so already. Dave, I think that concludes our time, man. Let folks know how to follow you and where they can find your work.
Yeah, I'm hosting 4 shows a week now, staying really busy, pumping out a couple articles a week this time of year as well. So I'm not even going to try to plug all that. Just follow me on Twitter at Dave Kluge, and you will see everything that I'm up to.
I absolutely love it. All right, for Dave Kluge, I'm James Koh. We appreciate you guys watching Best Ball Live. We'll see you next week. And if you've been watching, we appreciate you. See you.